With me in studio is Mitchell Barak, a pollster for Kivun Global Research, and someone who's given political advice to many Israeli leaders, including early in his career to Benjamin Netanyahu. But first, let's go to correspondent Natasha Kirtchuk, who's outside the Knesset. And Natasha, let's go into more of the details of how Netanyahu is going to put together his cabinet, and two names in particular coming to the fore today: the Shas leader Aryeh Deri and religious Zionism list leader Bezalel Smotrich.
Absolutely. Those are the two names all over headlines here in Israel today. Everybody wants to know who is going to get control of the finance ministry and the defense ministry in this country. What we know is that religious Zionism leader Bezalel Smotrich is demanding to be defense minister. He wants control of the defense ministry despite his limited background in defense. Many, even within the right-wing coalition, believe that he is unqualified for that position. And according to reports, it's highly unlikely that Netanyahu would allow him to become the next defense minister in this government. He's more likely to want to maintain control of the defense ministry within Likud and is eyeing Knesset member Yoav Gallant as the potential next defense minister. Then we come to the financial ministry, of course, another very sought-after portfolio in this government. And you have Shas leader Aryeh Deri, who's saying that he wants to be in control of the finance ministry. He wants to be Israel's next finance minister. This is a man who was convicted of corruption in the past, of tax offenses. It also seems highly unlikely that Netanyahu would allow him to serve as the next finance minister. But what we do know is that he is perhaps in talks attempting to convince him to take control of the interior ministry with what he's calling extra authority. We don't know exactly what that would mean, but obviously Netanyahu has a long path forward towards figuring out how to appease those party leaders within his coalition. He has 28 days to form a coalition. He's hoping that he's going to have a government ready by next week, but the question is whether or not he's going to be able to meet the demands of those party leaders and make everybody happy.
Yeah, well, it is going to be a tough puzzle to put together, but Benjamin Netanyahu certainly has a lot of experience in that regard. Natasha Kirtchuk outside the Knesset, thank you for that. And Mitchell, I wanted to ask your view. I mean, let's look at it from the political angle. Is Netanyahu going to be able to keep Aryeh Deri and Bezalel Smotrich? He needs their support out of those two key portfolios, which, of course, he would love to keep for the Likud, and also has to be mindful of the public reaction, maybe not popular choices with much of the public outside the constituencies.
He's in a very difficult position now because he always likes to campaign on the right campaign. We're going to have a full right government. It's going to be great. It's going to be euphoria for the right and religious. But he never really wants to get that government. He wants to run on that government. He wants all the seats there so that he can turn to the center parties and even the soft right parties and say, hey, let's form a national unity government. So now he's in a problem because, you know, no matter what you say about Netanyahu, and he's seeing him stand there in the president's house again and get the mandate again, you know, is just really a victory for Netanyahu. So seeing him do that is amazing. The problem is at this point is that this is probably going to be his last government.
Well, we have said that before.
We've said it before.
We've said that before.
But he can't. But so now he's at a point where this does not look like a great government. Now, knowing Netanyahu, the government that he puts together over the next month is not the government he will probably have in 18 months from now. He loves to shuffle things around. He loves to try and get rid of some parties and do some parties. And from the political point of view, actually giving Smotrich something like the defense ministry, where he may just fail or could be enough to cause him to not want to take it or to have to leave if he doesn't do a good job.
Right, but at the same time, I think Natasha put that, and it's been speculated in the media, and this is something that Netanyahu has done before. He could somehow give Aryeh Deri an interior ministry, and we'll talk a little more about that because of religious issues involved there. But the question is, can he find some way, some other aspect, some financial rewards to him, or maybe some security responsibilities for Bezalel Smotrich, so that they just don't get those key positions in government that that could be very problematic. I would imagine also defense, which has to cooperate with the United States quite a bit. That may also be a problem with Smotrich.
It is, but he's going to have to see what Netanyahu's first thing and the most important thing is to take care of a government, regardless of what the consequences are going to be for that. So he's going to do that.
Right, he has no alternative. He's not going to go to elections.
Right, at this point, over the last 3-4 elections, he's painted himself into a corner in that, you know, there's at least half of the parties in the Knesset will not work with him under any circumstances. So he's going to have to find some other way around that in order to keep a government. So now he really doesn't have a lot of choice. And normally he would spend the full 28 days letting them stew in their juices. And then only on the last 2, 3, 4 days would he actually put together a government. And now he realizes he may need to do it sooner rather than later.
All right, so let's look at some of the other problems that are being faced by Benjamin Netanyahu, because along with finding cabinet positions for those partners, Netanyahu will also have to contend with their policy demands. Now, the challenge posed by that situation was amply illustrated today by the demand of Jewish Power Party leader Itamar Ben-Gvir. He co-heads the religious Zionism list with Bezalel Smotrich, demanding that the incoming government enact a law denying the recognition of Reform Judaism conversions as criteria for Israeli citizenship under the law of return. Now, traditionally, Israel is supposed to recognize conversions performed by any established diaspora Jewish communities. And just last year, the Supreme Court ruled even that Reform conversions performed within Israel should be recognized for immigration purposes as well. Well, in a statement today, Ben-Gvir's party demanded that, quote, only a Jew who converted in accordance with Jewish law, halacha, would be eligible for citizenship under the law of return. Now, I just want to point out, just earlier last week, Itamar Ben-Gvir published a front-page article in the Israel saying, give me a chance, I've changed, I've moderated. And yet, apparently, and making a public demand, he wants to see a change that would really impact on Israel's relationship with the diaspora, especially the North American Jewish community.
Right now, I think he's playing to his base. Meaning, remember, up until now, the only thing he's really done successfully is make a lot of noise and be provocative. That's what he knows how to do. So, you know, even though he says, give me a chance, he can't help himself. And he's got to go out there and say something that's just going to get him the attention and going to rile up both his base and the people that he wants to get angry. At some point, he's going to really have to sober up. Because if he's going to be a minister in this government, and it looks very much like he's going to be a minister, then what is he going to do? You've got to be successful being a minister. You have to appoint people. You have to accomplish something in the ministries for the people. You have to provide services. So saying these crazy things or saying these things that he really believes is not relevant. What ministry is Reform Judaism relevant to, and how many Reform Jews do you think have converted and come to Israel under the law of return? Do you think it's hundreds of thousands, or do you think maybe it's 10 people? Meaning, so right. He's picked something just to wave the flag and fan the flames.
And maybe also raise the ante on Netanyahu, saying, you're not going to give me this, give me the public security.
Yeah, this is all posturing right now.
Okay, all posturing. But I want to bring in the conversation Michal Cotler-Wunsch. She's a former member of the Israeli Parliament for the Blue and White Party and a public policy and strategy advisor, joining us from Renana. And Michal, you've dealt very closely with issues of Aliyah. Even if Mitch is right that this is posturing by Itamar Ben-Gvir, there is a sort of a public diplomacy impact when we see someone who's going to be an Israeli minister talking about changing the law of return in such a way, isn't there?
Well, of course, and there shouldn't, Calev, be any anticipated change. I would imagine that there will be, I very much hope, a holistic approach to the changes that may or may not be necessary in the law of return, and that we will not be seeing this kind of populistic use of the law of return in this way, because, of course, it does impinge very, very gravely on the relationship between Israel and global Jewry.
Right. Let me ask you about that, Mish, because you work a lot. Also, I know with and you've worked with diaspora Jewry. This is not the kind of publicity that Benjamin Netanyahu wants for his government at a time when he's trying to reassure them that this government's not going to be doing anything radical to change that relationship.
Oh, he's in a pickle at this point because all of the people, it's like he didn't need this also. Meaning he has a problem now trying to, placate the Americans or get the Americans to say, hey, you got to work with my team because we're a democratically elected government and, we're going to go forward with these positions. But he's going to have problems getting certain people, including Diaspora Jewry, to work with some in his government. So making these pronouncements right now when no one knows who has these ministries and what's going on here, it's not helpful to Netanyahu. And it's not helpful to putting the government together. And I will give Netanyahu credit. He has both tweeted and mentioned now in Herzog's house how he's going to be prime minister to all people. If my memory serves me correctly, he doesn't always say that.
Right, and in fact, and this was a time when he campaigned very much to the right.
Correct. And right away he said, he's going to represent everyone, and we have to put aside our differences, which is quite different than sometimes he does. So he does seem like he's trying to unite people, let's say, or at least not offend them. So this is not going to be helpful to that, and he's going to, again, have to decide. Right. Again, he doesn't have 10 more terms. Whether this is his last term or second to last term, he's really going to have to think about his legacy at some point. And does he want his legacy to be Aryeh Deri in the finance ministry and Smotrich in the defense ministry and Ben-Gvir also having a senior position, or does he want to end up like Ariel Sharon and Shimon Peres, which they were divisive throughout their career, but they left the political stage as the most popular figures.
Well, Mitchell Barak, thank you for joining us.